Hello guys, TavHD here and welcome back to another video, and today we're going to be taking a quick look at this. This isn't going to be an in-depth video or anything like that, but today I have bought an iPhone and I have bought an iPhone 6s, as hopefully you'll be able to see with the S on the back there. Now I've never actually owned an iPhone 6 or 6s series phone. I went straight from an iPhone 4S and my next iPhone was a 8 Plus, so I've never actually held one of these generation phones before and I've never given one a go. And I saw this one on Facebook Marketplace for a very nice price, quite a lot less than all the others for sale, and it looked to be in pretty good condition, so I've just been out and I've bought it and I've literally just got back and we're going to take a look at it together today. So let's talk about the front first. This is a 4.7-inch display, which by today's standards is pretty small. My S20 Plus has a 6.7-inch display. There is quite a big difference between the two. And of course, being an older iPhone, it has the traditional design with a home button at the bottom, and this is an actual home button, one that clicks, unlike the later home button iPhones which had a solid state one which pretty much just vibrated. And you can also see there the size of the bezels. I am still a fan of bezels. I like to have something to hold on to, but I do think I am in the minority there. And looking at this screen, it looks to be in really good condition. There might be a few little scratches on it, but honestly it looks great. Of course, speaker grill at the top and front facing camera, as well as some sensors, but nothing else really to write home about. This is of course space grey. I think it is a lovely colour. I really do like it. And of course, like the iPhone 6, we've got the antenna bands around the side. Kind of controversial design. It's not a particularly pretty looking phone, but I don't think it's a bad looking thing by any means. Reflective Apple logo is quite nice. iPhone S, implying that I have indeed got a 6S and not just a 6. And of course the main features of the 6S compared to the 6 is that they strengthened the aluminium so it wouldn't bend so much, and also they introduced 3D touch. That's probably one of my favourite iPhone features of all time, and it really is a shame that they took it away, but that's not what we're going to be discussing today. On the side, there is some scratching just from the case being on it, but I'm really not too bothered. This was cheap. This is a 2015 device, I believe, so yeah, not a problem. Signature silent switch there. That's something I've always liked about iPhones, and of course volume up and down. Both of those buttons feel quite nice. On the bottom, a lightning port, speaker, and look at that. We've got a headphone jack. That's not something you see anymore, and it is something that I do still wish my phone had. There are times when I just want to plug my phone in and I don't have a USB-C cable to do so, and I just want to be able to use a headphone jack, but that is something that you cannot do anymore, which is annoying, but I'm sure I'll get over it. So now let's look on the other side. SIM tray. I will be putting a SIM card in this at some point, and also the power button. The iPhone 6, I believe, was the first iPhone to put the power button on the side, and that trend is still continuing to this day. So now let's turn this thing on and hope that this thing actually works. I've not seen it on, but that is a good sign. We've got an Apple logo. Okay, and there we are. It's come on, and the screen looks to be just fine. It's not cracked or anything like that. I can just about see a little area up here where there's a bit of light bleeding through. I'm guessing maybe it's had some sort of impact at some point. Not sure if you'll be able to see that on camera. If not, I'll try and put a picture on that displays it a bit better. But yeah, I can see there's about 3 or 4 little dots of brighter light up here, but it's really not a problem. It won't be too much of a distraction. So yeah, I'm not going to complain about that. It wasn't mentioned that that was a problem, but I'm not going to make a fuss. This thing was cheap and it's old now, and yeah, I don't really care. And the rest of the screen looks to be pretty decent. It's maybe slightly dim at the top, so maybe the backlight's going a bit, although I'm not too sure. Let's just set this thing up and we'll feel with it for a bit, and I'll be able to say a bit more about it. So I am going to set this thing up, then what I do with it I'm not too sure. I might give it to a friend, so I'll reset it again then, but for now I'll just set this up as if it is my own phone. So let's go with English, and yeah, the touchscreen seems to be working just fine. United Kingdom, let's set up manually. I'll connect to my Wi-Fi, So just typing that in, it's just reminding me how small this thing is. And I just pressed the wrong thing again. This keyboard is absolutely tiny compared to the ones that I'm used to. So that has connected now. Let's go on to next. And now it is going to try and activate. And it looks like it managed to do that just fine. So let's continue this. Let's set up Touch ID just out of curiosity to see if this works. Because if it's had a replacement screen, it might not work. But let's give this a go. And it looks like it is working just fine, setting up Touch ID. But just holding the phone right now, I can feel this thing's getting hot already. Hopefully that won't be a problem. Maybe it's because I've just had it on charge for a little bit. And we're not going to transfer anything. Let's now sign into my Apple ID and then I'll come back. Okay, so I've just signed in with my Apple ID. It sent a code to my Apple Watch, which was nice, and I just had to type that in. Let's just agree to all that. I don't really care, to be honest. And now it's going to take a few minutes just to set up my Apple ID. And so far this thing seems to be working just fine, even though it is connected to Wi-Fi. It's got the time completely wrong. It thinks it's 4:20 in the morning. It's currently 12:20, which is a bit curious. But I'm guessing it'll sort itself out in a minute. And it looks like this thing is now ready. It's saying hello, press home button to open. Let's try my thumbprint. There we are. We are now in. Make this your new iPhone. Let's just go ahead and continue with that how it is. Yeah, let's just allow it to do pretty much whatever it wants. I don't particularly want to add my card right now. And that's not a valid card anyway, so I'll get rid of that. Siri, yeah, let's just continue. Yeah, why not? Let's just go ahead and agree to everything anyway, just to be nice. I'll have it on standard. I think this screen is small enough as it is. And there we are. It looks like we are now on. And I've actually never used such a modern version of iOS. I think my iPhone 8 Plus is still on iOS 13, so I've had no experience with these widgets and things, even though they're nearly a year old now. This one I don't think will run iOS 16, I think that requires a newer iPhone 8 and newer I think, although I might be wrong, so I'll put that up on the screen. I think this is probably the latest version of iOS this thing is ever going to run, but I'm not too bothered about that. I've not used such a modern version, and I'm just going to have a little bit of a fiddle around with this thing for a while, to be honest, and I'll come back in a little bit. Alright, so I've just had a few minutes messing around with this thing, and I thought we would now just test some of its functions. So I thought let's just start off testing the flash. Does the flash work? It looks like the flash is working, so that is good. I know the speakers work from using the keyboard and hearing it doing all its clicks, but let's go on to Safari. Alright, I should be allowed to play this. Now of course it's very difficult to gauge that over a camera and on YouTube, but considering this thing only has one speaker at the bottom, unlike later iPhones that use the earpiece as a second one to do stereo, this is actually sounding really decent, and honestly the quality is better than on my S20 Plus. I've always found that Apple speakers are just better than the competition. I'd say my S20 Plus gets louder, but this is actually a nicer sound, so that is good. So that seemed to be working just fine, which is nice. Let's test the camera. Looks like that is working. Let's try the front one. Yep, that looks to be working too, which is good. Video mode is working. Slow-mo mode looks to be working. Let's just try recording a video to make sure it saves and stuff. Yeah, I can hear there that the microphone is working too because it picked up what I was saying just fine. And I didn't actually know what the capacity of this one was. It didn't actually say when I bought it. Turns out it's 32 gigabytes, so that's kind of a mid-range one. You could have got a 16, 32, 64, and maybe a 128, but I'm not too sure about that. So it's nice to see that this is a 32. I'd have preferred a 64 just because it's extra space, but this is still double the lowest capacity one, so that's not too bad. If I do keep this, I'm not particularly going to be storing anything on here. It's just kind of to mess around with. And let's see if 3D Touch is working. It is indeed. I just really like 3D Touch. Of course they made it so you can just like hold down for longer and it does the same thing, but there's just something about pressing hard and it quickly coming up. It's just really satisfying and I like it a lot. I really do like 3D Touch. That's something which I do miss using my S20. It's just nice to be able to do that. I can just like hold down for things on that too, but this is just nice. I think that's probably enough talking about this now. And by the way, it did manage to get the time right in the end. Not sure if you can see that, but it does now say the correct time, which is nice. And in just a little amount of time been using this, it's gone down 5-6%. And I haven't actually checked the battery health yet, so I should probably do that. So battery health, 84% out of 100. Now that's not great, but if that's an original battery, I don't think that's too bad. My iPhone 8 Plus after 2 years went down to about 86, so I don't think this is too bad at all. And I think as long as it's not like used for anything too intensive, this should be just fine. But as I have already mentioned, it's really hot, and it's still really hot now, like to the point where if I held this for a long time, I might actually end up like making my skin burnt, which isn't great. The main heat is coming from the top up here, and it gets like kind of cooler towards the bottom. I'm not sure what's going on up here inside to make it so hot, but yeah, it seems to be working just fine. And Touch ID, it's just so much quicker than the fingerprint scanner on my phone. If you take a look at this, most of the time it works fine, but sometimes it doesn't. Let's just see. Yeah, it worked fine then, but there's just something about this. It's just easier, and it might not actually be quicker, but it just feels better, and it seems to work every single time. My S20 Plus is very hit or miss, but this just works, and that's something that Apple's always been good at. It seems to just work. Alright, so I think that is pretty much going to be it for this video. I know we didn't really do anything, but there wasn't really anything to do. I've literally just bought this phone to have a bit of a mess around with and maybe give to a friend, so I thought I would bring you along too, just as I had a look at it for the first time, and so far it looks to be pretty decent. There are those little bits on the screen which are a bit funny, but the whole thing seems to be working, and it's actually really responsive considering it's on its last ever version of iOS that it will ever support. It seems to be running just fine, to be honest. It doesn't seem to be running any slower than my 8 Plus right now. And yeah, I've got no complaints so far. Now, whether you see this phone again in the future on this channel, I'm not too sure. It depends what happens to it. If I give it to a friend, then you'll probably never see it again. But if I keep it, then maybe you will. I'm not sure what we'll do with it. Maybe some experimenting, maybe trying to jailbreak it if that's still something that people do. Of course, this one was cheap, so if we end up breaking it, it doesn't really matter. Of course, I'd prefer not to break it, but if that happened, oh well. So that's where I'm going to leave it for today. Thank you very much for watching this video. Looks like I've got myself a very nice little phone here for not a lot of money. So again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.